Hey, what's up? I'm Allie, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about the top 10 books that I read in 2023, and I really feel like a lot of these weren't talked about in a lot of the book spaces that I was in. This might be a product because I was feeling really disconnected from the book space in 2022. Who knows? Or it could be just because I was experimenting with a lot of different genres and types of things in 2022 because I just really didn't know what I was in the mood for. And it's really hard to pinpoint those things when you're a mood reader. Yeah, I'm here to talk about how great they are. Before we get too far into this video, I do want to thank today's sponsor, which is, you're never going to believe it, Book of the Month. I love Book of the Month. I've been using them for years. It is a monthly book subscription service, and they have something for everyone. There are different genres you can choose from, as well as things that are either new and upcoming or just debut. And the great thing is Book of the Month has already vetted a lot of these books and picked some of the best books coming out for the month. It's such a good price too because you get a hardcover book, and I might be biased as the hardback hoarder, but I love me a good hardback book, and for the price you cannot beat it. I also love that if for some reason you're just not in the mood to read, or maybe you're just really savoring your last month's pick, you can skip at no charge. I was really excited for this month's picks because January just has so many good books coming out. They were we're gonna start the year with a bang. I was really excited that two of my anticipated releases for the year were picks this month. So one of them is What Lies in the Woods, and this follows three friends, and when they were younger they had this game in the woods that they played, and they kind of become obsessed with this game, and then one day one of them is attacked and she ends up surviving the stabbing that she gets and ends up putting the man in jail. The problem is they are adults now, and they all know that they lied that summer when this happened, and that they've been covering up what really happened that summer. So this is about when one of them goes missing after wanting to give the truth. Another one goes to try to investigate and figure out what went on, what happened, what was going happen, what. Those were words. I saw this and I squealed a little. It's Hellbent. It's Hellbent, and it's in my hands, and here it is, and I'm so excited. So this is the greatly anticipated sequel to Ninth House, which is a dark academia, murder, mystery, necromancy type of thing. It's gritty and it's dark, and I absolutely loved it, so I'm so excited for the sequel, and I'm so glad that Book of the Month had it. If you're interested in Book of the Month, I do have a link down below, and you can use my code HARDBACKHOARDER to get your first box for $9.99. Alright, now let me tell you about some of my favorite books that I read in 2022. I do have a little bit of an order to this, just based on my enjoyment when I read it, and also just what I think will be the most interesting. So in 2022, I only gave 3 5-star ratings, which is kind of unheard of for me. I tend to be a pretty generous rater of things. I will say I gave out a shit ton of 4.5s. Just so you get a 4.5 and you get a 4.5. So like I really did end up enjoying a lot of my reading in 2022. I had no patience for books that I wasn't enjoying. I have quite the list, and there will be a video of all the books that I started and just didn't finish for one reason or another. At the bottom of the list, we have Final Girls by Mira Grant. Now, Mira Grant is a more well-known author, Shannon McGuire, and I figured I would see a lot more hype around this. We follow a journalist who goes to kind of debunk this new research and therapy that is happening, and it is basically how they've taken virtual reality and they are making people basically live out horror movie scenarios in their mind to go through therapy and get through whether it's trauma or a fear or whatever. And you know, everyone's a little bit skeptical, but also like the science behind it is really sought after. The doctor decides basically the best way to do it is to actually participate, so we are going to put you in one of these scenarios so you can see what it's like. The thing is, the doctor also decides to join in on the scenario, and then chaos absolutely breaks out. I love the fast pacing of this. It's a novella, so it has to fit a lot of action into one to really feel solidified, and I think that this really does it. I really love the concept. A lot of people who have trauma will they love horror because it is a way to experience anxiety in a controlled setting, and this was kind of an avenue of navigating that in a way. So I thought it was a really fascinating concept. I also just love Mira Grant's writing overall. It's just the horror is always so subtle, but also just so disturbing at the same time. It's just enough like graphic detail to be unsettling. So I really enjoyed it. And if you're looking for a quick read, there you go. And I was really slacking on graphic novels in the past year, and I also have a hard time finding kind of like horror-esque graphic novels that I really enjoy, but I ended up reading The Me You Love in the Dark, and this was kind of just a whim pick up for me just based on the cover, and I absolutely adore this. I love the art style in this. It's kind of creepy and kooky. The coloring in it is kind of warm and unexpected at times. It's a coziness to it, but it is about an artist who really hasn't been feeling it, and she's kind of lost a bit of her passion, and she's trying to reinvigorate, and she's trying to create some darker things. So she ends up moving into a haunted house. She's been told that it's been haunted type deal, and she's like, yeah, whatever, but, you know, I just want a creepy old house away from everything to, you know, whatever. An overall scenario of what it's like to be kind of trapped in a situation, in a very manipulative situation as well, and how hard it is to escape that. So, and how easy it is to fall into the cycles of that. So this was very unexpectedly hitting me in the field. It was also just a really fantastic story on top of that, and I'm so glad that I just picked it up on a whim because it was so good. I feel like I've raved about this a lot, so you've probably heard me talking about this because I do believe I've talked about this multiple times here. So, but that's because you need to see it. The next one is a mythology retelling, and I love feminist mythology retellings from the point of view of a woman who maybe has been misunderstood in mythology, and it's Kekai, and this follows Kekai, and basically she has been known for banishing Ram, who was supposed to become king and then was banished, and then had to come back, basically, and she's kind of been depicted a bit of just not very good. This is a point from her point of view, and I love it because it's like from her childhood, growing up, and then in her adulthood, and all the choices that she made to get there. And I love these because they're slower paced, but you really feel like you know the character by the end. And I love a lot of mythology retellings. I really love Indian mythology retellings, so this one was really just spectacular, and I loved it. And it's just such a fantastic story about just like camaraderie and also family and different dynamics and just being independent and powerful while also knowing when to seek out the help of others and lean on support and whatnot. And it's also got like magical elements in it and whatnot as well. So it's just a fantastic story. I feel like I don't see a lot of people talking about it, which is weird because I feel like this was everywhere there for a while, and then anyway, mythology people, get on it. Then another horror novella is Dark Harvest. This again was another one that I just was kind of like trying to eat up as many horror novellas as possible, and this one was kind of based around Halloween, and I don't know why I was so surprised at how gruesome and dark this was, but also it was just so action-packed. It talks about like this small town tradition about how there's like this scarecrow that comes to life on Halloween, and the children have to go out and someone basically has to hunt the scarecrow and kill the scarecrow. And it's such a kind of dark tradition in this town, and you find out that it's even darker, that the scarecrow can hunt back. It said that anyone wins basically they leave the town and they become really successful in life. And we follow one character who has been bullied and who doesn't have the greatest home life and who wants to go and wants to leave town. So decides that they are going to go out and try to participate in this, but learning the truth. So yeah, anyway, it was a really great read, especially Halloween time if you're looking for just something quick and fun and gruesome. There you go. All the things we love together. Quick and fun and gruesome. Next one is not going to be one that is for everyone, and I've said this before, this is definitely not a book that I would recommend to anyone. It's more of a very specific reader that I would recommend this to. This was nominated for a Goodreads Award, so I am intrigued by that, just given how deeply disturbing the series is, but that it is a manhwa and it is killing stalking. To say that it is a story about a basically a boy who becomes obsessed with people and then he stalks them and he becomes obsessed with this other guy and decides to stalk him, but in stalking him finds out that this guy is actually a serial killer and kidnaps him. To say that is just the general synopsis feels like I'm tricking you a little bit, because that is the most mild most mild thing that happens in this whole series. And it is, trigger warnings list is very long, and I will say it is deeply graphic and it is disturbing. I am still not really sure why I enjoyed it so much. I think it's because you just can't turn away, and there are some psychological aspects to it, and you're just trying to figure out, like, they're both bad people, but you're still kind of rooting for them at times, and why do you feel that way? It's a kind of becomes more of a deeply personal reflection on yourself during the series at some point, and am I okay? Kind of, yeah. Anyway, I loved it. I read the whole series within a week because I just couldn't stop reading it. I couldn't turn away. I had to know what was going to happen. I really don't know how else to talk about this without going into too much more detail, so we'll just move on. Now, one that you probably have seen everywhere is What Moves the Dead. And this one I was a little apprehensive about because I really love Kingfisher's imagery and the atmospheres, and the creepiness is not, I feel like, your normal creepiness. It's like taking everyday natural everyday natural things and just like hyping them to a grotesque level. And I liked those aspects of the writing that I have read from before, but I really didn't enjoy the story, and I normally didn't enjoy the characters as much. They, compared to everything else, they just kind of felt a little dull. So I was very apprehensive about going into What Moves the Dead, and I fucking loved it. I loved it. Setting of it, it's just kind of spooky, gothic, and just kind of eerie, but again, we still get that like natural elements really amped to a very disturbing level, and I really, really like that. I think I really like a natural horror. Is that even a thing? I don't know. Nature horror, is that? I like it, whatever it is, and the characters are also a bit eccentric, and I really enjoyed that. I kind of like that you didn't really know what to expect when you were meeting these characters. It was a wild ride, and I really enjoyed it. Then we have Tinfoil Butterfly. This is a very gritty book, and it is very suspenseful throughout it. I would definitely say it's more suspense, a little bit of horror type mixed in, but it's a lot of like deep diving into like the subconscious of like the character that we're following as well. And it is basically what has happened is we know something bad has happened to our main character. She is currently on a journey to kind of this, we don't even know, like kind of like a pilgrimage type thing to some place. And along the way, she comes across a small child who is obviously in some sort of danger. Like, we know something is up, and how that all just escalates from there. But also a lot of like the character that we were following has just had some deeply troubling things happen, and we kind of go back and forth between the present and the things that have happened that have led to this moment as well. You just never knew what was going to happen next. It felt really apocalyptic at times, and I'm not too sure if that was, just the setting, but also like our character just feels very like end of the world. Like this, everything is like the end of the world type thing. This was one of the first books that I read in 2022, and it has stuck with me throughout the year. Anytime someone has asked for a recommendation, it is one of the first ones I can think of off the top of my head. It was just that memorable. It just felt like a story I hadn't really read before, but it also had all those dark and gritty parts that really make you contemplate a book. It makes you think. And sometimes I like books that don't make me think a whole lot, but sometimes I like books that really like make me sit down and take a moment, and I'm like just trying to get my thoughts together about it, and this was one of those books for me. Those books that you're just like, "What the hell did I just read?" And I loved it. Then we have my only 3 5-star ratings for the whole year, and, the first one is I don't know which one to start with, but we'll go with what I think might be interest level, possibly. So the first one is Sour Candy, and this was a horror novella. You never a horror novella. You never believe it for me. A horror novella that I picked up based on what other booktubers were recommending. This is just not a cover that I feel gravitated towards. The synopsis also did not seem like something I would gravitate towards. It's about a man who one day, basically, a child appears and everyone is like, "Oh my god, look at it's such a, the father and his son and there's all these family pictures of them together and all these things." The problem is this man doesn't have a son. He never had a son before, and out of nowhere it has altered. This boy has shown up. He's obviously not from here. And he has altered reality. This was just not a synopsis that I personally felt gravitated towards. I don't know how else to better describe the synopsis to make it more interesting, but I will say this book had me gripped from page 1 all the way to the end. I couldn't put it down. It was so good. It's definitely also a thought-provoking book because there's just so much. There's so many mind games that are being played along the way, and I feel like you get a full horror novel in such a short span. It really gives you the full atmosphere of what's happening and the full horror element of like this bending reality bit, and it also leaves you on one of those, it's kind of just like this cycle type thing, and kind of leaves you like, holy, oh my god, like when does it end? It just seems like one of those books that like just seems kind of cheesy, and then you get into it and you're like, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. Definitely going to be looking for more because this type of writing style as well. It's not overly flowery. It's not always directly to the point, but it's definitely philosophical at times as well, and just really great rhythm to it as well. I feel like I'm just using words and they don't make sense, but they make sense in my brain right now. Anyway, if you're looking for something with a little bit of shock value, a little bit of horror, and a little bit of what the fuck, here you go. Then on like a totally different vein, we have Daughters of the Lake. A gift from Leanne from Rasselas Reads, who I'll have linked down below. And I am so happy she sent this to me because I don't know if I would have read it without having the beautiful physical copy. And this was a stunning book, an absolutely stunning book. Very mundane, but also it's very magical in a way, and it's also kind of dark. And I love small town books that are about small town drama. I love it. So this has small town drama, but it also has stories, and just lovely stories, and how basically the stories and legends get lost over time. This is about a woman who keeps seeing a woman in her dreams, and she ends up dreaming one day that this woman is dead in a lake with a baby. And that morning she wakes up and the woman is dead in the lake with her baby. And people are kind of weirded out because she's told that there's a body on the beach, and she goes down and recognizes the woman, and then knows that the woman has a baby, and no one else had realized this. No one knows who she is. No one's seen her before. So then she kind of becomes a bit involved in the investigation. She keeps having dreams about this woman. And then it gets even weirder because this woman has been dead for over 100 years. So there's a lot of weird things happening, and our poor main character is also, she's just been divorced. She's kind of figuring out her life, doesn't really know what's happening, also just trying to get settled, figure out where to go from here, all while all of this is happening. This is a story between her life, but also the dead woman's life. Also stories weaved in from even further beyond, and it's basically how different communities and groups can have these different stories and legends, especially about the nature around them, and how over time a lot of those stories have gotten lost and have lost their meaning. And it's also about family and the connections between family and family ties and generational trauma, especially with women. And so it was a story weaving so many different components together, and it does it all so beautifully. And this was definitely one of those stories that I just was like in awe of because of how well I felt it was done. And there were parts that were written, and it was like things that I have thought about but have never known how to express. And the author just got it when it was like, especially just kind of describing people and just going beyond like their physical appearance, but the ways that they act, that you immediately know this type of person. So it was just a really brilliant story. I loved it. I wanted to just like hug all of these characters. I felt tied in with them by the end, and I love the use of legends and whatnot throughout it, and those magical elements, and to think that there's still magic in the world and that we've just forgotten it. I adore this book. I'm so excited to read more from Wendy Webb because she just seems like an absolutely fantastic writer. I was so surprised to find out that she had other books and this was not just it, because why has no one told me about this book sooner? First of all, cover, stunning, amazing. Anyway, yes. And then the last book I'm going to talk about is one that I think is going to be just the most interesting to most people, and because it is a romantasy, which is kind of what I was known, I feel like, for reading for a long time, and it's still a pretty big genre. So between Wrath and Mercy, I've seen a few people talking about this, not nearly enough people. This is a romantasy. It has the perfect mix of like fantasy, we're getting ready to be on the verge of war type thing, but also romance, because we have childhood best friends who have split ways due to something terrible that had happened, and kind of reconnecting and not really sure how that's going to work because they've kind of like hated each other up to this point. She is an adult. That's the other difference. She's a full-ass grown adult. She has a teenage child. And she is very afraid because in this world there's kind of like the chosen one type thing, and she is terrified that her daughter is the chosen one and has decided to keep her hidden for pretty much all of her life. This is because her twin sister was picked as the chosen one and was killed. So she has decided to protect her daughter all these years, and her daughter really, I mean, she is a teenager. She wants to go explore things. She wants to experience life, and her mom knows that she won't be able to keep her forever. So she decides that her daughter can go out, you know, on an adventure with her father, and she is kidnapped. You know, a good reason to start a war over is your child has been taken for war purposes. So, you know, makes sense. So she ends up hunting down who is known as the prince. He is the prince. He is the Prince of Blood, I believe is his nickname. And she goes and hunts him down because she now needs his help. She has not talked to him in years and years and years. They kind of hate each other, but she needs his help now. How they come together, and also looking back on the experiences, because you know something has happened in their childhood that has caused the split, but you're not really sure exactly, so you kind of get little flashbacks bit by bit, and you get to know the world a little bit more as well. I think this does a pretty good job at balancing. Sometimes I read romantasy and it's a little too romance heavy, and that's not always a bad thing, but I think that this one really balances a lot of those aspects between the serious world building and then the romance that is happening. There are times that you almost forget how suddenly gross and gory it's going to get, because again, there's war coming, because you just love the characters. You want to like hang out in a tavern with them basically all day because they're just so silly. It's one of my favorite friend group dynamics, because they're just they're all goofy and they're silly and they've known each other forever, and they just, you know, they have a lot of drama that has happened between them, and you know, you get to see them kind of little jabs at each other, and I just love this friend group so much. I absolutely loved it. I immediately was telling all of my friends to read it, and I think especially if you are a Sarah J. Maas fan, you will really, really enjoy this book, and if you've been sleeping on it, now is your chance. Now is your chance. I really want to give it a reread already. Those were my best books that I read in 2023. I feel like I had a really good reading year. A lot of random things that I feel like I never would have come across that were just kind of on a whim That also means that I, on a whim, left a lot of things behind, but I feel like I had a really good reading here, and I hope that trend continues. Let me know if you've read any of these, if any of the, how you feel about any of these, because I do tend to not always have the most popular opinion on things. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!